Welcome to Watermark's Church Leadership Podcast, a conversation with church leaders for church leaders. My name is John McGee. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hey friends, I'm in the studio all alone today, and I want to do a quick episode on how to be your own Chief Development Officer. How do you think about your own development? And here's the thing. If we're waiting for other people to develop us, we will always feel as we are the victim. Like we can't move forward until someone acts on our behalf. But if we'll own our own development, we can feel really empowered and we can really craft the ways that we move forward in our life and ministry and leadership. And as we start here, I want to give you kind of a Christian's perspective on development. It's very different than self-help. Self-help is going to be about becoming the best you in many respects for you. Well, as a Christian, we believe that we've been given opportunities, we've been given gifts, we've been given roles both now and in the future. And so when we think about developing ourselves, what we're really talking about is a stewardship. It's stewardship of our life. It's stewardship of the opportunities that we have. And so that is why we want to be really, really thoughtful about getting better. Now, it's also fun, to grow and to learn and to get better across all areas. But we do it ultimately as an act of gratitude and an act of stewardship of the different opportunities that God has given us. And what's great about being a Christian is you don't have to kill yourself to develop yourself, because there's nothing really for us to prove. As a Christian, you don't have to hustle for your worthiness. And so you can, out of gratitude, out of thanksgiving with joy, develop yourself and give thanks to God for what He's allowed you to do, and also prepare yourself for the next seasons of leadership or however it is that God's going to use you. So real quick, I want to give you 10 ways that you can own your own development, how you can be your chief development. I'll give you 10 categories, a couple thoughts, and then from here, you can begin to think about your own life. What would a next step or two be? And then we'll close with what you can do as a leader for those that are under you or around you or your friends or your peers, how you can help them develop as well. Okay, so number one, first thing, I think if I could give you one piece of advice, and you probably would guess this one, it is to read. And it is to read widely, read the classics, read the books that have been around 100 years. If they've been in print that long, there's generally a reason. Read history so that you can know the lessons that should have been learned during those seasons. History does repeat itself. I heard a great leader say recently that all you need to lead is a sense of history and a good night's sleep. It's such a great line. And it really is true. History will help you. Read those who have done great things. Read about things that you're interested in, but read beyond that as well. Read about people who disagree with you. If they're well respected, they generally are so for a reason, because some of their thoughts are pretty coherent, and you can learn, even if you disagree, how they think and how they put together their thoughts. And I've been thinking recently just about the wonder and the value of a book. If a book costs, $15 to $20, what you're getting is someone oftentimes who's world-class in whatever it is that they're doing. And they've sat down and they put together all their ideas, and they've done so in a very, very coherent, oftentimes, hopefully, concise way that you can pick up, again, just for an absolute steal. Some of these people that you could buy their books for $15 or $20, it might cost you $1,000 or $2,000 just to have a meeting with them. And so for just a fraction of the cost, you can interact with them in your own time and your own ways and pause and think. And it really is a tremendous value. Here's an idea that you may want to play with. I just tried this. I bought the physical book, and I also bought the audio version of a book that I just read recently. And what I did was I played on my phone through Audible. I played the book, and I played it almost at 2x speed, I believe, and just walked along in the book with my pen. I was able to underline, still able to circle some things like that. Occasionally I had to pause and just put some notes in the margin or make some connections, things like that. But by and large, I was able to just keep moving through the book. And for me, I'm not a super fast reader. And one of the reasons is I tend to pause way too long and just try to think about things and remember other things I've read or other questions that I have, which can be good, but it can keep me sometimes from moving through in a really good pace around some books. Some books are to be read paragraph by paragraph, some of them even line by line, word by word. And so this was a book I just needed to get through, and I wanted to be able to kind of get my arms around it. And I found that to be a really, really helpful way just to keep moving and not get too bogged down. And I think I read it in 2 sittings. And I would stop at the end and make some notes, maybe 2-3 takeaways from each chapter. And it was really helpful. And I think I'm going to do that again. So if you are going to develop yourself, I really do think one of the best things you can do is read. Or if you aren't a good reader, you can listen, or you could do, in this experiment that I've been running recently, you can actually do both. So second thing you could do is actually go back to school. If you've got your college degree, you can go get a master's in whatever it is that you are interested in or something else. We've had several on our staff who have gone back and gotten MBAs. They have gotten some classes from seminary. Those who got their masters have gone back for their doctorates, DMins, and you can just kind of see a coalescing of ideas, a depth of the way that they communicate and lead, and you can see the payoff on those who have. And so it's hard. It's a pretty big step, but maybe for some of you, going and get some more education might actually be the best next step for your development. A third thing you could do is to form your own cohort. Maybe you don't want to go back to school. A great option would just be to assemble people that you enjoy spending time with, people who push you, people who feel safe, people who are curious, and set some type of cadence to get together and discuss, read, go experience things. If you could go, sometimes you can get a meeting with someone if you have 5 people as opposed to if there were just one of you, and you can go and meet some people that you would love to learn from, or you could go to other cities and be together and have some immersive experiences. But it might be that a great next step for you would be to form a cohort. And I've seen some friends who've put together groups and they meet, with a cadence of once a year or twice a year. There's generally some learning components. There's some updates and some, processing of big decisions. And it's been a real blessing to them. And so for you, that might be a next step. And not everyone will say yes to your ideas. Some people won't understand, but there'll be a few people that would say, I would love to do that. And then you can lead through that. And hopefully that will help you develop whatever it is that God would have you grow in, or whatever would be next wise steps for you. So number 4, you can ask for feedback. Maybe better said, ask for ruthless feedback. If you want to develop yourself after a meeting, ask those who are in the meeting with you, do you have any feedback for me? After a talk, do you have any feedback for me? If you did a project, do you have any feedback for me? Any of those types of things. Ask people who are wise, ask people who are kind, and ask people who are for you, but also ask people who would tell you the truth. People who won't just tell you consistently, well, that was amazing, you're amazing. It's just to be with you is incredible, because a lot of times we can't get better. Now you want to ask, not only what you can improve on, but what was most helpful. Where did you add the most value? I think that's really, really helpful feedback as well. But this has been something I have observed in others, people who just make this incredible jump to next, I hate the word, but levels of leadership or influence, things like that, generally have had their ear to the ground on feedback and have been ruthless and relentless about getting it. And I think about a friend who I heard him preach his very first sermon, and it was kind of a mess. I wasn't really even sure what it was he was talking about. He was energetic, so I was excited, but I just didn't know what he was talking about. And that was kind of what it was like to be around him the first several times he did his sermon. But the way he distinguished himself was he just asked for feedback over and over and over again. He would ask for feedback before he gave the message so that it would be better than it would be otherwise. And then afterwards, he would ask for feedback again, and he would ask for a number grade 1 to 100, and he would just go around to those who were with him, ask that, and then he would ask for what would it take to bring it 1 letter grade higher. And people, I sat in on a few of those. I was shocked at how candid he let people be with him. But it was that process over and over and over and over and over again that produced in him now skills that are kind of world class. And he stands on some pretty big platforms and talks to stadiums, and I'm just shocked it's the same person. But what it was a tenacity on his part and really feedback from others. Jeff Ward, who you heard from a few episodes ago, he and I are in the middle of kind of exchanging some feedback for each other. We are going to basically poll each other's teams. We're going to meet with a few people. I'll meet with a few people on Jeff's team. I'll give him a very, very simple questionnaire, Jeff's strengths, Jeff's weaknesses. If he could work on one thing, what would that be? And then I'm going to put that together for him and share it with him, and he's going to do the same with my team. And so we're not hiring anybody from the outside, and hopefully we'll get some feedback and we'll pick one thing that our teams just share with us, in some ways anonymously, where we can get better. So that may be a right next step. A good next step for you is to ask for ruthless feedback. Number 5, if you want to be your own chief development officer, you can seek out mentors. And we've talked about this here before, but a lot of people would actually like to help you. If you are respectful, if you are action-oriented to some of the things that they share with you, if you're grateful, if you are very specific in your ask, as opposed to, can we just get together, but if there's a reason, and then you really do follow through on what it is that they share with you or next steps that you commit to in real time. Oftentimes people want to help you. People want, in many respects, to help those who are younger. Not all people, but a lot of people. And so for many of us, mentors can be an absolute game changer, and you can do that yourself. You can go find them yourself. They're probably not running around the streets of your city looking for you. You're going to have to look for them, but seek out mentors. That can be a great way to be in the game and developing yourself. Number 6 is to hire a coach. And so many of you played sports and you remember that a coach, sometimes it wasn't fun to be coached. They made you do things that otherwise you wouldn't want to do. But after the fact, you're always glad that you listened to them, or you're glad that you ran the wind sprints that you wouldn't run otherwise, or did the drill over and over and over again so that you got the results that you were seeking. And you can have a professional coach. And I've really only had 1 or 2 sessions with a coach. I don't have lots of experience with this, but I've seen many people benefit from that. So if I was going to look for a coach, I would ask for referrals, people that were like me, in many respects thought like me, valued the same things that I valued. And I would ask them, hey, do you have a coach? Or have you heard of anyone that would be a good coach? And I would just schedule 1 session. I would schedule 1 session with that person and see if there's a connection, see if they would be helpful to me. And then from there, I would think about next steps. But I've seen a coach be very, very helpful to people as they're in their own kind of developmental journey. And oftentimes a good coach will help you understand clearly your next steps, and then they will box you in and hold you to it and make you do what you know you should do, you just might not otherwise. And so a coach could be a very, very helpful thing. So the 7th thing you could do in this list of 10 things to be your own chief development officer is that you can seek out new or uncomfortable experiences. And so a question I might ask you is, when is the last time that you did something new? When's the last time that you've been in over your head? Because that's oftentimes where we grow. When we get into a place that we don't have all the answers, or we've never done it before and it's new, that's generally where we're stretched, where we grow, and where we are developed. And so you can put something on your calendar that will stretch you. It might be something where you teach, or something where you lead, or something where you serve, or learn, or write, whatever it is. Put something on the calendar, or maybe even set a goal that will bring out the best in you. There was a season early on when I was younger, I would try just to say yes to whatever the opportunity was, even if I didn't know how to do it. And so before I talked myself out of it, I would just raise my hand and say, I will do that, or can I take a run at that? And I did a lot of things that I wouldn't have done otherwise, that were hard, that I had to figure out, but were part of my developmental process. And so there are things wherever you are, if you're in a church or an organization, there's some things that are lying around waiting to be done. There's more work always to do that you can just pick up. And that can be a way to develop some new skills, learn some new ways of thinking or doing things, and also just having the discipline of staying fresh and learning and adding value in new ways. That doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't cost you a plane ticket to go out of town. Right where you are, I would encourage you to seek out new or uncomfortable experiences, or just help in new ways wherever it is that you are. Okay, number 8, something else you can do to develop yourself is just online content and courses. This is really an amazing time to be alive. There's so many platforms like Masterclass or Udemy, YouTube. Many seminaries have put several of their classes online. So if you can't, go to class during the day, well, you absolutely could do so at night. And maybe what you could do is just put something on your calendar where during this period of time, every day or every week, you're going to move through some content, move through a course. I've seen some Ivy Leagues have some of their classes online. And so even if you're not there physically on campus, you can have access to absolutely the same teaching and some of the same content and some of the things that really some of the smartest people on the planet are presenting. And you can do so from the comfort of your own living room or at your own desk. So think about a topic that you'd like to grow in, and see if there's something out there, there's some kind of class, even if it costs a few bucks, the value, the return on that could be exponential. Number 9 is podcast. So you probably are already convinced of this one because you're listening now. And, it's a great way sometimes to have interactions with people that you might not be able to have physical interactions with. You can learn from them even though you can't sit with them. Interviews, podcasts where people are interviewed are always really great. You can listen to these things at 2x speed and move through them pretty quickly. Some tips: you don't have to listen to every episode. If something doesn't grab you, don't listen to it. Find something else. You can always ask other people what podcasts they listen to. You can curate some really great lists by asking other people. And then here's another pro tip, is that a lot of times people will start a podcast. If it's an individual, they'll start a podcast. And what they do right out of the gate is they kind of put their life work down. Whatever it is that they've been thinking about for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that becomes the first 10 episodes. And then they kind of run out of things. They repurpose a lot of the things that they've said before, and then they move to interviews. And so a lot of times we will always start with the most recent episode for good reason. There's some recency bias to that, but I would think about sometimes going back and looking at someone's podcast and seeing what some of their very first ones are. And if you want to do something really interesting, sometimes someone's talked about the same thing over a 5 or 10 year period, or maybe probably 5 years. And you can go back and compare and contrast about how they talked about it 5 years ago, how they do so now, and see where they're learning, their thinking and their language has changed over these last 5 years. So podcasts can be incredibly, incredibly helpful. And, this used to be what audiobooks were for. And I learned so much in my 20s from audiobooks, and sometimes I didn't even have enough money to buy the audiobooks. I would go to my public library, and I probably always had 1 or 2 books on audio, or courses that were on audio, which is really funny to think about now. Actually buying some or renting or checking out some physical cassettes or CDs. I had both a cassette player and a CD player in my Honda Accord. And I figured if I was in my car, I would use it kind of as a mobile classroom. And there's still several things that inform my thinking came from those moments in my car where I was learning. And so you can still pull audiobooks, but podcasts can be incredibly, incredibly helpful and a very efficient way to interact with a lot of different people that otherwise you might not. Okay, number 10 is conferences. And I actually love conferences. I love to go to conferences for topics that I care about, with other leaders of the church or pastors. I love being in the same room. I love being immersed. I love being focused without distractions. I think that's a value for me a lot of times in terms of the actual content that's there, is I'm not on the hook to do anything else other than to learn. And so I still enjoy those. And then if the conference isn't fantastic, there's generally some people that I can connect with. And so I know a lot of people that they actually buy tickets to conferences and they never once go into a session. They just use that time to connect with other people. And they would say probably that's where their best learning comes from, is in the hallway, reconnecting with friends, having meals, coffee, those kinds of things. And so I think conferences can be a real help. And then also, I talked about jumping into things that a lot about that are kind of your tribal gatherings. Those are great. And then also you can use that as a way to kind of rapidly speed up some learning on something that you are thinking about, or bring your team. If there's something you're trying to crack the code on, you can all learn together. It's a great way to connect with those and bond on your team and learn together. And I've just had several conferences that have been very, very impactful on me personally. And I remember when I was a young youth pastor, and I didn't have a whole lot of money, but there was a church that was doing a great job with their youth ministry, and I just wanted to learn. I remember just buying the cheapest flight I could find, and buying my own ticket and going up there, and I just wanted to be in the room and ask questions. And then in between the poor guys that were hosting the conference, I would walk up to them and just pepper them with questions. I was just so eager. And I don't know that I would have gotten that kind of time from them had I just, tried to get on their calendar, but I could walk with them between sessions, and hopefully I wasn't too much of a nuisance, but I was just hungry. And in that time really, really did. I remember that one conference really, really sped up some of my learning and crystallized some of my thinking. And I was really grateful for that time. So that was a list of 10. I'll give you a bonus one here. As Christians, we can memorize scripture and pray, which is unfortunate that a lot of times, we don't think about reading, memorizing, meditating on scripture and praying as a way to develop ourselves. And that is our competitive advantage. So you could think about strength areas and learn some more, just kind of God's thinking, God's posture. You could learn from examples in narrative portions. You can also use it just to shore up some things that, that are maybe your weak areas. And so if you were angry and that was kind of outburst were something that you were, that was marking you or that was kind of derailing you, James 1:19 and 20. Would be great to memorize. If you find yourself being timid, Joshua 1:9, whatever it is, just to have something tucked away so that you can go to and quote and claim during those moments. And then as always, just to be still. Just to be still before God and think about any list of sins, deeds of the flesh, just to go over there and ask God to show you anything in there. And absolutely being yielded to the Spirit is the number one way you can be developed, especially as a Christian. We should never forget that or never somehow discount that. We should lean heavily into that, okay? So that's a list of 10. I would encourage you to pick one, pick two, pick something. Maybe it's none of those, but just that thought process will get you down the road to do something that you might not otherwise do to develop yourself. Again, not waiting for other people to act on your behalf, but you activating for your own growth and your own development. You can pick things, I think, that are areas of strength, but I also would think about things that are a bit of weak spots, blind spots, that are things that are really kind of hindering your leadership, or things that you just feel like you're not really sure of yet, that you need to grow or develop or learn. And think about some of those things and pick some activities that help you grow in those areas. Okay, so if you are a leader and you have a team, or you've got, even if you don't have a team, if you have some friends, what can you do? How can you develop those around you? This podcast ultimately is about developing ourselves. But while we're here, I want to talk to those who lead others. And I want to share with you a report that came from LinkedIn. And they said that 94% of employees said they would actually stay longer in their organizations if their organization helped them learn. And friends, if you are leading anyone, they are right or wrong, they're looking to you to develop them. And especially those who are younger, they are one of the first generations that is used to really having everything mapped out for them. Your grandparents really thought of the world as something they needed to make sense of themselves. And now I'm seeing in younger leaders this desire to have everything kind of mapped out. It's the only way they've lived. Their parents have mapped out things for them, and they hope you will do the same. So what can you do? I'll give you 3 S's real quick. Number 1 is that you can set the pace. You can be someone who is getting better. Just being around you, they know that you're always trying to get better. You're seeking feedback from them and from others. You're reading, you're learning, you're putting new ideas together, you're trying new things. You can just set the pace so they can watch you. Number 2, the second S is that you can share what you're learning. And so if you've read a good book, you listened to a great podcast or a talk, or there's something that you are doing, some type of goal you're chasing down, you can share that with them, and they, by proxy, can learn from you. They can learn what it is that you're learning, and you can speed up their development process. And then number 3 is you can provide space, would be the third S. One of the things we did recently on our team was we took a half day. We told them this was coming. They had a couple weeks to get ready for it, but we told them they were going to have a half day to learn about something that would help them do their job better, and they were going to get a half a day. It was on a Friday morning to do so. So they didn't have to do so after the fact. They could do so during the day. And so I think I ran through a place and got some coffee and some breakfast tacos, and we just connected for a few minutes in the morning. Everyone went about their half day, and they learned so many varied things that they were dealing in categories I didn't even know existed. And then we went to lunch and we shared what it was that we learned, or what were the deep dives that we did, and we all kind of learned from each other. And we don't have another one of those on the calendar. We may in the future, but I wanted to, as someone who was, in some ways responsible for their growth, I wanted to provide some space and say, this is important. It's important enough today that we're actually going to take some normal work hours. But regardless, whether you have, space that's carved out during your day that's provided for, you are still responsible for your development. We talked about that just for a few minutes and had a great time doing it. So set the pace, share what you're learning, and then also provide space. So friends, I hope some of this was helpful. I hope you can pick out a right next step. And again, we'll end where we started. This ultimately is all about stewardship. What would it look like to be a good steward of the moment that you have, the gifts that you have, as well as stewarding even today who you are, who you need to be for this next season. Ultimately, that's it. And it's not about us, although I will say it is always fun to grow and get better, because when you get better, really everyone else around you gets better, and every person that you lead gets better as well. Friends, thanks so much for listening in today. If you have questions or comments, you have anything you want us to know, any ways we can serve you, please reach out to us at clp@watermark.org. That's clp@watermark.org. We'll talk to you again next time.